I am Christina Bell. I work with USLED. I'm in sales, the Senior Director of Sales, and I have a partner here in Peter.
Yes, my name is Peter deLeon. I'm the general manager working with Hines in Durham, North Carolina on a building called Hock Plaza.
So we went ahead and did an entire site retrofit last year with Peter using USLED's products. We organized installation as well. And so for this topic, we're going to talk about the retrofitting process. What we hope you get away from it is basically what does it take to do a retrofit all the way through the entire process. What are the different whys of why you might want to look at LED lighting as an option of next project for your properties? And then what does that implementation look like on the very back end? So I'm going to start with a video and hopefully it... Okay. That was a good recap of the project that we did with Peter. So, Peter, take it away.
Yeah, so I do want to emphasize this point is that that's a 230,000 square foot building that was built in 2003. I see a couple of folks who are here at the sustainability presentation where the idea is how can you make a sustainable impact on your properties? And it's if you can reduce your embodied carbons and look at the value you can create through improving your systems. And one of the ones they spoke about is LEDs and electrical efficiencies. That is exactly what we did here. We had a conversation with our ownership group, Harrison Street, based out of Chicago, and they were on board with the idea of taking a look at the building. How can we improve it? And we went to convert the entire building in one swoop to LED lighting. And that fits in with three different things. One, Harrison Street's vision of sustainability. Two, Hines's global goal of getting to 2040 net carbon zero, and Duke's goal of getting to net carbon zero. So it was really hitting on three different marks. And the challenges that we were running into. So the key is, we heard this in the presentation, ownership buy-in. That was great. And what we were looking at is buildings from a 2003 construction with original lighting in it. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of inefficiencies that we had with the electrical usage, the lighting that was coming down from it. We even had a hired position, a utility porter, who would walk through the building to replace the lighting. How can we fix all that? And that's when we started talking to this team. And I think I really, really, really want to stress this point. This is a phenomenal BOMA case story. Because what you had here is we were really deep in the RFP process. We already had 3 vendors quoting this out. I came to International, I was walking the floor, and I ran into these people. And I'm like, look, we're kind of late in the game, but if you want to do it, you can send us your proposal. They did. They came in with great pricing. They came in with a great proposal, and they actually won the bid. So if there's vendors out here, you could say, this is worth the investment to come here and to present. If you are a property manager here, this tells you, go out. You can learn some great things on this trade floor. So take the time. And it really led to a transformational project at my building.
Awesome. So from the lighting perspective, we really wanted to hit on the why, right? Why is it that you might look at your property? What are the different things that you might be considering on the LED lighting? Is it bad lighting overall? Is it energy reduction as the sole focus? Is there buy-in up the chain that you're needing to make sure that you are taking into account? Are there local and municipal maybe problems that you're trying to address, right? There's a lot of fluorescent phase out across the country where procurement is a problem whenever it comes to fluorescent lighting. And so there's a lot of different reasons on the why. Separate from all of that, you can really have a significant energy reduction and the maintenance costs especially. So you have your guys that are focused on not only HVAC controls or just the HVAC system itself. You have lighting, they're pulled in a lot of different directions. So how do you reach your team and making sure that you're utilizing their focus a lot better? Reducing that maintenance cost is a significant piece, right? Changing bulbs is a very expensive task for your maintenance team, right? And then, of course, just lowering that carbon footprint. So greenhouse gas emissions, just making sure that you get the feel goods whenever you're buying something, like a washer and dryer that's got that Energy Star rating. You want to make sure that you're buying really good quality LED lighting that is also reducing the energy substantially. You should be looking at somewhere in the 70, maybe 75% energy reduction by moving over to LED lighting from fluorescent lighting. There's significantly benefit on the energy side. And if you do have LED lighting that you already converted maybe 5-10 years ago where it was very early adoption, you can even be getting another benefit by going from LED to LED. And so just because technology has gotten so much better over the course of the past 10 years especially.
And I'd like to touch on why we chose US LED. It was a very thoughtful decision by ownership to make this conversion all in one swoop. I mean, you're doing 13 floors of light changes throughout the entire building. That's highly disruptive. One of the reasons why we selected US LED is that they are willing to work with us on this whole entire project in one fell swoop. So we were able to do a project management planning schedule, and they were willing to work with us to do all of this at night. So from a property management side, it's a huge value add to us as we operate the building. And then you have all just the intrinsic effects of going with LED. I mean, she hit it on the head. It's a lower energy cost. It definitely will impact our bottom line in a positive way. The reduced maintenance, I had mentioned that earlier today, or earlier in the session, that we had a utility porter who was going around changing lights. We got a 10-year warranty on these bulbs. So the maintenance dropped to nothing. We don't have that person as on our payroll any longer. And then, of course, the real win, and I think the gentleman in the third row there, he was speaking of it. It is our job as property managers to talk about these wins and to talk about the lower carbon input or footprint that we're creating. So from my seat on the bus, to be able to say that to my ownership group of what we're doing, how we're being good stewards of the environment, to be able to say that to my tenants is a very, very powerful statement and selling point of creating value for the property.
Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and do a live poll question. So if you want to open the app, the BOMA 2025 app, go ahead and click to the main menu, select the Engage button, and then go ahead and search for this session. So what we're wanting to get a feel for is what is the biggest challenge that you face whenever you're considering a lighting retrofit project for one of your properties. Is it budget constraints? Are you unsure about the ROI and maybe some of the incentives that are available? Is it disruption to the tenants that's preventing you from wanting to move forward? Or is it finding a trusted partner maybe that is willing to work with you through the details of your property? I'm going to give a nice pregnant pause. Alrighty, so what does that process look like? So the process of doing the retrofit. So first and foremost, which is not listed, you need to know your why. Is it, like I said at the very beginning, is it lighting output? Are you having uneven lighting throughout the facility? Is it energy reduction? Are you getting complaints from your tenants? Are your maintenance staff being used too much on lighting whenever you need to utilize them in other aspects? So know that why. From there, that's where we become your partner. We're going to go to site and do an on-site audit. We want to get a really good look at what is there. So what is the energy consumption of each individual bulb in every room, every hallway, the exterior, along the perimeter, the wall packs, all of that, so that way we can get a good understanding of what exists. Then we're going to take that why that you have and apply that into creating a solution. So if it's energy reduction, we might give you a different solution than if you have terrible lighting throughout the facility. It's been hodgepodged over the course of the years, and you're wanting to just kind of set the entire facility in a new, nice upgrade, right? I guess I should go to that's the solutions. And during the solutions part, we're going to go ahead and also do an ROI. So you're spending your money. You want to know when that is going to be paid back, right? And in addition to spending your money, you're wanting to understand what other incentives can I take part in that may offset that cost. So I'm going to use a random number. Let's say you're spending, $30,000, but your utility is actually supplying a rebate for $15,000. All right, now you're spending really 15 after you get that rebate back. That's a significant benefit to look at whenever you're looking at LED lighting. So we're doing that throughout that process. There's a lot of communication, getting a good understanding of what is required based on your why. Next is discussing that timeline and all of the logistics associated. So with a project like Hines Plaza, that was, like you said, huge building, 12, 13 stories, a lot of planning for materials to get delivered in a certain cadence as we were installing floor by floor. Disruption was a non-negotiable. We could not disrupt the tenants. And so we had to make sure we had materials delivering on time as we were doing installation. So that pre-planning of doing the logistics organization was super important. Then the install itself. So obviously we're going through that installation process. Our project management team, Jose was the main person communicating with Peter and his team, and he was working with them throughout the entire time. So we got this entire floor complete, or we were not able to complete this section of it. So next day, this is what we're going to come in and do. Throughout the process, we weren't able to do this part, so we had to pivot and work on this other section over here. We have materials arriving during this time, and it's all of that organization and that communication throughout the entire process. We like to overbend that communication so that way you're super comfortable with us coming into your space and your tenant space. At the final completion of the retrofit, what we're looking for is, did we meet that barometer, right? So what was that why on the front end, and are we meeting that on the back end? So we'll do a final inspection with you guys, getting a really good understanding if it was light levels and making sure that we really lifted those light levels up. We're going to go take measurements in the after, right? If it's energy reduction and you wanted some metering, we can do that as well. Just go through that before and after process to make sure that we hit every mark that you needed. And then any adjustments from there.
I just build on that. What was really great is working with a partner like US LED is items 1, 2, and 3. We did the heavy work. We did the real deep thinking as far as how we can manage this project, which in the end made 4 and 5 crazy easy. And what I do want to just point out that when they had their team come out, they walked every single floor with my building engineers, and we talked through the issues that we were running into. Where's good lighting? Where's bad lighting? Where are we having problem areas? And then the project ROI and solutions. This goes back. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here, but the the building value through sustainability presentation this morning, data. Getting that data, understanding what kind of data we need to collect is so important, because then you can tell the tale. You can talk to your ownership group and say, here's what we did, here's where we were before, here's where we are afterwards. And to that end, we wound up deciding to put in, we separately from US LED, we installed a sub-meter electrical panel on one of the test floors, on one of our busiest floors, the 7th floor, so that we can kind of get a small data sampling of what the utility usage is pre-installation. And then, of course, after the turnkey installation, it was great. I mean, it was all at night, very few problems. It was communication with the tenants was just critical, and it worked out pretty well.
Awesome. So on the material perspective, so US LED is a lighting manufacturer, and we organize the installation. On the very front end of manufacturing products, we focus on that engineering side, and that's where I recommend you guys focus whenever you're looking for a partner, is the product lifetime and the warranty. Our goal is to not ever use the warranty. We don't want you guys to have to use the warranty, right? And so in order to make sure that that doesn't happen, we go ahead and focus on the lifetime of the product. So in normal terms, you know, whenever you need your lights replaced, it's you plugged them in and they were X amount of lumens, and then eventually it's like, all right, they're so dim now, we're done with those lights. And that point is called the L70 in lighting terms. At that point, normally for products, you're looking at 50,000 hours. That means that you're replacing them roughly every 5 years. With US LED's products, we focus on about 200,000 hours, so you're not replacing them for 20. So by the time that your maintenance team is going and replacing all of them, or you're doing another CapEx budget type of project every 5 years, you're not touching hours for another 20. Does that make sense? So that's step one, and then selectability in the field. That's the other key piece. So I was talking to another one of you guys that came by the booth earlier, and they want hallways to be looking like one color. They want the rooms themselves, the offices, and it's a healthcare facility. So, or their properties are healthcare properties, and so they want the rooms to be a different color, so a little bit more yellow compared to a little more bright white, like in this room right now. And so selectability is a key piece whenever looking at solutions. So that way we can really fit into the mold that you guys are looking for within your properties. In addition, the light output. So again, that selectability, we have in the example right here, the can light, there's options for 3 to 5 different light outputs. So if you have down the aisle, you want it some brightness, but in a room you wanted a different brightness, or your tenant does, or whatever, we can still install the same fixture and just adjust while we're there based on that feedback. So,
and if I could just add to that, it's like when we were looking at the project, it's not like we had tenants coming up to us and complaining about the lighting in the building. That wasn't the issue. So we were just replacing them with something else. The beautiful thing is that with all these options, we as the management team on site were like, how can we make it better? What can we do? What steps can we put in place? We had one hallway. It's like a 30-foot run. Every single light fixture had a different light color in there that they gave us as a sample, and we'd walk the hall to see what made sense for the building. And even to the degree of like the can lights in the bottom, we had to be mindful of the conference rooms. Now that things are very Zoom or virtual oriented, we made conscious decisions on what type of light to select for these rooms to make it the best value or the most effective for the tenants using the conference rooms. So having that variety not only allowed us to change out the lights to gain those efficiencies, the whys that we keep talking about, but also gave us the opportunity to up our game.
next is the installation portion. So obviously with Hines Hock Plaza, like I said, disrupting the tenants was a non-negotiable. That we were not allowed to do that. We absolutely had to work overnight. So on the front end, we had all of that prepared. to get our crews out to site and be working on that night schedule. Separate from that, like I said, there were multiple trips of materials being shipped to site. And so we had, a couple floors at a time being delivered as the installers were working, and finishing up this floor. We had the next batch ready to go. That way there was also minimal disruption with the dumpsters, because that it takes up room, and that's impacting you guys, and that's impacting your tenants and trash companies and all that kind of stuff. And then the last thing really is that recycling. So making sure that we always do recycle, but if you guys want a very specific certification proving the recycling was complete, we can absolutely do that as well. And so in this case, keeping that flow going was super important because of the size of the building. If it's one location and it's a couple floors, we can get that done no problem with one dumpster without all of the logistical part of that. But
Yeah, and we did a lot. Like I said earlier, we did all the hard work, all the thinking ahead of time. So we mapped out, when are you going to do these floors? Where are we going to store the bulbs that are coming in? And those fixtures that she was talking about, they're not little. And we had to find a place to store them, figure out who was going to pick it up, when they were going to pick it up. But all of that was planned well ahead of time, along with all the communication to the tenants, so that I may be stealing thunder from the next slide, but the greatest complaint that I had was that there was none. None of my tenants were mad, which was, if you're in property management, that's shocking. But it was awesome that, okay, can you please vacuum the dust from the ceiling tiles? It was a very nice implementation.
then comes the next problem of needing to find a cleaning company to clean up now that you have light and you can see the dust on the floor, right? All right, we talked about the whys enough, but ultimately those whys establish the parameter of, did we meet what we were supposed to accomplish, right? So was there the energy reduction that we were supposed to have? Was there the increased light output that we were trying to accomplish? All of that. So that's where we are going to hold ourselves to that standard.
Yeah, and the proof is in the pudding. And I go back to the idea of, it is up to the management team, the property management team, to sell the story. We are taking the data of the reduction in power, and we're selling that story to ownership. We are proving that this is a step forward in our net carbon zero by 2040. And Duke University, who's my primary tenant, their goals of net carbon zero, we are showing them that we are being good stewards to the community and reaching those goals. It's a very powerful story to be able to tell to your tenants and to your ownership group. All right, I hit all the points.
I didn't move fast enough. Sorry. All right. Okay, so pro tips for you guys from our perspective being the partner, but what you guys should be looking out for. You got to start with an audit. That has to be your step one. We need a baseline to go off of, whether it's US LED or another partner. We need to know what we're working with and what are your whys. He'll hit on the whys again, but ultimately that is the starting point, is the lighting audit. Next is prioritizing that long lifetime product and a substantially long warranty. So you want that long lifetime, again, so that way this headache you don't have to address for a good long time, right? And then capitalizing on those utility rebates and any other incentives that might come up. So you do have 179D tax deductions that may be available, and then those utility rebates. So making sure that you really do capitalize, because you are going to be putting that money out. So you want to make sure that you get some back if you can, right? And then the last thing is choosing someone who's a partner, who's actually working with you for whatever it is that you are trying to accomplish, whether that is energy reduction, whether that is light output, whether it is, you have logistical challenges within your property. They need to know all of that information and being able to work with you.
Okay, from my seat on the bus, I don't really want to add anything. The only thing I would say, that I would change is instead of partner, it's partners. During this whole project, you have a bunch of partners that you work with. We had a partner with US LED where they helped educate us as the property management team what to look for and how to measure this. We had a partner with our ownership group they spent a lot of money on us putting this program together. We had to prove to them that the ROI was in place. The other partner was our tenants, working with Duke University, making sure that they understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. So being able to demonstrate the savings that we're creating, the efficiencies we're gaining, and the impact to our carbon footprint, all incredible things. And then when we did the final walkthrough, it was really nice to be able to say, we had very little changes. We had very little punch list items. Sure, there was few here and there, as you'd expect in any project, but I've been in projects where those punch list items seem to never end. This was not one of those projects.
I think I could have hit on financing a bit more, couldn't I have? Budget constraints are the top concern that all of you guys had selected from the poll earlier. So the other options were unsure about the ROI and incentives, and then disruption to the tenants, of course, and finding that trusted partner. So whenever it comes to budgets, I'll talk to that for a very split second. There's a lot of options. So obviously there is, your CapEx funding, but there is also financing options and leasing options and all of that. So there are other ways to go about finding the budget. It's just finding the partner that can work with you through all of that, right? And then the ROI and incentives, the ROI should be able to be calculated very easily. And the incentives, if you're working with a partner that's used to working with utility rebates, they should be able to gather that information for you guys, no problem, right? Disruption for the tenants, that should, again, be a non-negotiable.
If I could just touch on one thing about that poll, the budget constraints, there was, actually, I think it was this guy again, who was in the sustainability program. It is impendent upon us as the property managers to be the ones heralding the story about sustainability. He put a story together. It's like, hey, I want to do this program. They said, hell no. Ownership group said, hell no. A year later, they were like, well, no. Third year, it's like, yeah, this might be a good program. And then that last year, why haven't we done this already? That's the position you want to be in as forward thinkers at your property of how can we, as property managers, deliver that value? And we're delivering that value by understanding what the benefits are. And it may not be today. It took us a while to get the budget approval, but that's my message to you is that don't go in and say, okay, in 2026, we're going to be able to pull the trigger. It's going to be a slower sell, but I encourage you all to be patient and live it. Create the value through sustainability, and you've got to deliver that message.
Yeah, absolutely. And during that ROI process, just to back that up, there is a figure, a cost of waiting, and that's calculated during the ROI. You have your utility bills, you're doing the calculations, you did the audit, somebody provided you a solution. There is a legitimate cost of waiting that you can present upwards. So we jumped ahead and we discussed the live poll results. Are there any questions that you guys had before we step away? Because this is kind of wrapping up the session. And if not, we really appreciate your time. Yes, sir.
Oh.
I'll come and grab you after because with these things, it's not two ways. So sorry.
Hey, I do want to close. Brad Metzler, we all listened to him today. I wanted to say thank you to US LED. They are creating a legacy in my community by going through this retrofit. So it's all important for us to remember that what we're doing has an impact. Thank you. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate it. If you want to discuss anything more, my booth is 328.
I'll start singing Adele now for anybody who wants to stay.